Oh boy, yet another headline that is worth covering. So, for the Airbnb owners out there and for the potential forthcoming Airbnb owners out there, this video is definitely for you. This is probably one of the biggest buzzing headlines right now when it comes to real estate, and falling revenues could result in a housing crash in some US markets. That's basically what the headlines read. So let's unpack a little bit of that and find out exactly what's going on, because this is interesting. So first, if you're not familiar with Airbnb, Airbnb is another form of a short form rental. So most of this data taken comes from a source known as All the Rooms. And All the Rooms generally was the first entity to kind of trigger the alarm, sound the alarm and say, hey, there could be something that we need to pay attention to when it comes to this Airbnb. Now, per All the Rooms, their data says that in some markets, revenues are down by roughly 50%. In the two markets that they point out, Austin, Texas, and Phoenix, Arizona. Now, on the other hand, economist Jamie Lane from AirDNA actually states that All the Doors has their information all wrong. Now, he does state that there has been a decline, but nowhere near 40% or 50% as stated by All the Doors. Airbnb is going to chime in and they agree with Jamie. Why would they agree with All the Doors and create alarm for pretty much everyone who is one of their subscribers, people who support the product that they've put in place? But it goes on. There's more opinions, right? Of course there are. So CEO of Reventure Consulting, Mr. Nick Gurley, states that this crash is definitely forthcoming. As a matter of fact, he says that we are going to see some movement in the Airbnb model over the next 12 months. And a lot of it is already going on right in front of us, per Nick. Nick also goes on to explain some pretty interesting things, in my opinion, when it comes to some of the numbers and some of the things that I was not aware of when it comes to Airbnb. Is that Airbnb makes up for roughly 1 million properties here in the US. And if you take a look at what's going on in the housing market, that's more than double. Maybe not more than double, but around double, more than twice the amount of homes for sale. The last number that I looked at, there were roughly 570,000 homes available for sale throughout the US. But yet there are 1 million homes owned by either an Airbnb owner or a VRBO owner, which is a crazy difference. To go further, in Phoenix, if I'm not mistaken, there are roughly 18,000 Airbnb and VRBO owners in comparison to only 8,000 homes for sale. At the end of the day, what does all of this mean? It means a few different things. First and foremost, as an assumption, I believe that people who purchased Airbnbs over the last 2 years, the newbie Airbnb owners who purchased a property using a mortgage and purchased within the last 2 years when prices were just outrageous, well, they may be in a little bit of trouble. May very well may be in a little bit of hot water, because if those rentals are down, they still have a mortgage payment. So they very well might be in some trouble. However, on the other hand, some of the older Airbnb owners, they may not be in as bad of a spot. Yes, revenues may be down, but they may be leveraged a little bit better, where the impact may not be as impactful. And ultimately, this could result in some of the newer Airbnb owners. This could result in them selling the property. And somebody asked me when we were talking about this, they said, well, why wouldn't they just rent the properties? Well, if you look at what an Airbnb property generates on a monthly basis compared to what your general rental generates on a monthly basis, there's a significant difference there. And usually Airbnb owners are structuring their deal on what the Airbnb would rent for, and not a traditional rental. So if they did rent it as a traditional rental, it would produce some income for them, but to be honest with you, it would not solve their problem. And again, some of the older Airbnb owners who may have a little more equity, maybe didn't purchase at the height of the market, they might be in a position where they might want to turn them into a long-term rental, but majority of them will not have the luxury of turning them into a long-term rental. So why did all this happen? Well, the pandemic, of course. Let's just take a look at what happened over the last few years, okay? And this actually ties into a video that I just released about what consumers are looking for in the current real estate market. During the pandemic, when everything was shut down, people wanted space. People also had the luxury of working from home or anywhere remote, which meant that people were looking for places that weren't a hotel and that were in areas that they haven't been in before. Arizona, Texas, anywhere throughout the country, right? Where these destinations were areas that people were flocking to, working from remotely for a short period, and then would return to their everyday life. As we have returned to a normal life, people aren't commuting and working from home as much as they were. People also aren't as concerned about having space. In fact, some of the surveys that are out there indicates that people are willing to get back together and be closer, living in condos and townhouse communities and so forth. So applying the logic of needing space or being separate doesn't have very much weight today. And at the end of the day, if this is true, because again, it's all speculation, and well, I'm sure we're going to hear more about this as time progresses, but what would that mean for the real estate market? Well, I'd never wish anyone hardship or anyone to be forced to sell a property due to a financial hardship or anything along those lines. But if this were to prove to be true, this could help balance the real estate market. We all know that over the last few years, the reason the real estate market has been the way it has been is because there's limited inventory, yet there's pent up demand from buyers. And even with interest rates going up, we still see that demand. So having some of these 1 million plus properties come onto the market as either a rental or a home for sale, if anything, would just create a little bit more opportunity for people out there looking to rent or buy. So ultimately, if you are an Airbnb owner, let me know your thoughts on this. I know some of you are panicking. If you're thinking about becoming an Airbnb owner, well, maybe now isn't the time. Yeah. Interesting to say the least. So again, let me know your thoughts. And if you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that button, that red button that doesn't bite. And while you're at it, mash that bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. And with that said, until next time.